45 minutes. That's how much time the crew of the Belayed Orders spent searching Shipwreck Bay for skeletons that were not spawning. And while it's never fun to experience a bug, 45 minutes is a lot of time to not accept your quest as simply bugged. I'd say spending 45 minutes searching for skeletons was a small mistake, but there was one classic Sea of Thieves mistake, even bigger than this one, that this crew made throughout their entire journey that guaranteed the Sea of Thieves they were experiencing was Sea of Thieves in hard mode. Before I get to that though, let me rewind and truly set the table for today's story from the Sea of Thieves. Belayed Orders is a brigantine with two pirates who occupy the ship, Mama, who has never had her teeth, and Krabs McDougal. Having grown up as the best of buddies, they always wanted to sail together. When choosing between a sloop or a brigantine, they decided their first ship would be a brigantine, since it had more firepower than a sloop and was faster than a sloop. Today, Belayed Orders was running Order of Souls Emissary and aiming to gather plenty of skull-based loot. They decided to start with the aforementioned Skeleton Captain voyage, which led them to Shipwreck Bay. Lucky Lawrence would be lucky one day more though, when instead of spawning out of the ground to be killed, the gods of the Sea of Thieves decided these captains would not rise to be perished once more. And in fact, for 45 minutes on Shipwreck Bay, they would never spawn. This time on Shipwreck Bay gave me a good sense of the crew that Krabs McDougal and Mama made up. After parking relatively precariously, both pirates left the ship, swimming loot as they found it back to it. This was relatively normal at first, but then, following along with Krabs McDougal and Mama, it seemed the swim to the ship had been feeling longer and longer. And that's because it was getting longer and longer. Their ship had been slowly sailing away, with their back sail not fully raised. This silly mistake happens to every pirate now and again. So, they brought the ship back to shore, re-raised the sails, and continued to search for the skellies. This search continued and continued at Shipwreck Bay, and for a second time in 30 minutes, their ship was not where they left it. Yet again, Belayed Orders was driving ever so slightly on its own. This time though, there was a smaller island to catch the boat and stop its continuous drifting. Some say if that island hadn't been there, Belayed Orders would have eventually drifted so far without Mama and Krabs McDougal noticing, it would have gone into the Red Sea. Because it was a no-bones day at Shipwreck Bay, Mama and Krabs McDougal had to change their plan and course of action. They had taken note of the Ghost Fleet World event that was taking place just to their east at Crooked Masts, and decided they'd try to check it out. The classic Sea of Thieves mistake they made that would haunt them throughout their entire session was being a two-person crew running a ship truly meant for three. And while Mama and Krabs McDougal were very good pirates, and even though the brigantine had what they viewed as advantages, with only two people in their crew to operate the ship, it felt at all times like there was something missing, a missing piece. The Ghost Fleet went alright at first, with Krabs focusing cannons and Mama focusing sail management and helming. Once Belayed Orders started to take damage though, is when things went really south. Mama still had to focus on steering the ship out of danger, leaving Krabs to go full defense on repairs and buckets. Krabs McDougal could have been the best pirate on the seas with the bucket action, but with so many holes put into their ship, there was an eventual point of no return. Mama and Krabs McDougal bucketed, not wanting to believe they had lost their ship so easily, but alas, the ship had sunk. Lucky Lawrence was with them though, because their ship's respawn location was very close by the Crooked Masts, just to the north at the Sunken Grove. Having learned from their mistakes of their fast and loose approach, Mama and Krabs McDougal gathered up a cannon rowboat they found and began to head towards the Crooked Masts for round 2. This time, they'd be more calculated, knowing defense and offense would have to be delicately balanced. Back into the action after just a few regular ghost ships were taken down, the second wave of the event came, spawning in 3 groups of Ashen Ghost Fleet ships that when taken down would drop loot. Belayed Orders took massive hits when side by side with the ships, so they decided to try and trail them from behind instead. Suddenly, cannon fire could be heard from the far side of Crooked Masts. Another ship had for sure entered the arena. Off in the distance, they were seen making quick work of 3 ghost ships, collecting the loot and then sailing off, likely to fix themselves up. If that slip was interested in fighting Belayed Orders was about to be in big trouble. Having caught up with 3 of the ghost ships, they were faced with yet another barrage of cannonballs, leading Mama and Krabs to have to head down to repairs, leaving the ship on a turn. A turn that set the sloop up for an opportunity to land a devastating finishing blow on Belayed Orders. Krabs McDougal ran upstairs and jumped on a cannon, but based on the angle, all he could really do was hold his breath. Yet, the sloop didn't shoot back at the brigantine. Was this sloop actually a friend? It seemed to be. The two ships sailed in tandem towards the group of ghost ships and took them down. While Belayed Orders had been able this time to land the proper offensive blows to finish those ships, turning around to collect the loot was an impossible task, leaving the sloop to pick up all of the loot that was dropped in this wave. The third wave of the event brought continued challenges to Belayed Orders of management, with constant cannon shots putting the brigantine in a worse and worse spot. 2 people on the brigantine was just not doing the trick. The sloop pal, though, was able to do a lot of heavy lifting and carry the event onto the final wave, which would lead to the hardest challenge Belayed Orders would ever face in all their days on the Sea of Thieves. With all the repairs having to be done to the ship, Belayed Orders was nearing the end of their wood supply. Wood was crucial, especially if they were going to be taking on the same amount of damage that they had been taking this whole event. While flying ghosts and some flotsams with supplies were around, harpooning these things up onto the 2-man ship would prove difficult. And now the storm was rolling in, making the task even harder. Playtime was over. If Mama and Krabs McDougal didn't want to lose their ship a second time, they had to get serious. Having gotten their supplies with just seconds to spare, and having dealt with the emergent threat of the skeleton ship, Belayed Orders aimed to finish the job with the sloop. This was a 2-hour painstaking battle between the dead and living, and finally, it was over. After all that hard work, the only loot Belayed Orders had been able to gather was what was dropped from the skeleton sloop they had sunk. The friendly sloop, who frankly did 95% of the work on the fleet, and at this point had all of the loot on their ship, could have left with all of the loot, but instead, they came over to exchange. At first, it seemed the sloop was just giving Mama and Krabs McDougal a ghost chest. However, soon, the generosity expanded, as every single last loot item was rewarded to Belayed Orders. The pirate, Bad Hair Bob, from the sloop who had defended them and fought with them, gave the crew of the Belayed Orders one final gift: an opportunity to complete their missing piece and fix their Sea of Thieves mistake. Because by the end of this journey, Bad Hair Bob joined the crew of Belayed Orders, bringing Belayed Orders from a 2-man brigantine in over their heads to a fully crewed 3-man ship.